Have you ever caught yourself just maybe out of the corner of your eye or just straight on in a mirror and you are like, what is that face? What are those words that are coming out of your mouth? What is that demeanor that I have? Or maybe you find yourself sometimes repeating the words that your parents said to you and that you swore you would never say to your children. Or maybe you have your kids saying to you that you're mean or that you're strict or that they don't have any fun. Yes, kids can sometimes be dramatic, but when they say this, it kind of strikes a chord. It hits a nerve in you. And so you're wondering, am I too strict? Or admitting that, yes, I am strict. How do I loosen up with my homeschool kids? And we're going to tackle this very interesting topic right now in today's episode. Welcome to Little by Little Homeschool Podcast, where you'll learn tips and strategies that will empower you to home educate your children. I'm Lee Nguyen, a homeschool mom of over 12 years, which includes 2 graduates. When I started homeschooling, I was pretty much on my own and was desperate for encouragement and help. My mission is to be a source of encouragement and help to you. Whether you are just beginning your homeschool journey or you're deep into the homeschool lifestyle, Little by Little Homeschool wants to help you stay the course because all the time you are investing into your children is completely worth it. If you're ready to take your homeschool to new levels, keep listening. Before we begin, I want to give you a heads up of one thing. Here we are entering basically we're at the end of May, right? Do you know Memorial Day is 1 week from today? If you're listening to the U.S., that is a holiday that kind of feels like it kicks off summer, whether you're done with your homeschool or not. It's just kind of an unofficial beginning of feeling it's summer. But I wanted to let you know on Thursday, be sure to come back to the podcast before you go ahead with your holiday weekend plan, because I have an announcement that's going to occur right before the Memorial Day weekend. So just want to put a bug in your ear. Don't miss Thursday's episode. Today's topic is a little bit hard because as a Christian family that I am, and most likely you are as well, you have that understanding that you want to train your children in the admonition and fear of the Lord. But we need to do that with balance. I don't think God is telling us to do it in an extremely strict way. And sometimes as we have children, we might begin very laid back or semi-laid back. I didn't begin very laid back. I began very uptight. And the ante just continued to go up as I had more children and just all of the balls that I was juggling with that. But also we have to recognize that our kids can be very different. Whether you have one child and you are comparing them to another family, another child, or you have 2 children or 5 children or 10 children or however many, you recognize that kids are different. And so therefore, parenting can be more different. You might find yourself being really strict when it comes to your homeschool children with one child or a couple children, but not needing to do that with the other children. I think that might resonate with you. I can see that in my life as well. And if you've been here for more than a hot minute, you might be able to pinpoint that I have had some kids that I've had to be a little bit more heavy-handed with. But I think that also we can cross that line and just overall, even with those kids that we have to guide a little bit more tightly, we can become more strict. And I want you to just loosen up and because I want you to enjoy these years with your kids and not look back with a lot of regret of, oh, I was just so heavy-handed and came down so much on them. James likes to tell the story of how, oh goodness, I don't even know how old my kids were. I remember what house we were living in. So none of them were past probably middle elementary age, probably, was when this came up. And he said to me one day, you know what, Lee? I wouldn't want to be our kids. We are not any fun. And I knew he was right. I was probably pretty offended at the moment, and hopefully I didn't say anything that showed that offensiveness. But I was like, yeah, eventually I was like, yep, you are right. And I look back, I'm like, yeah, we weren't. And that was, though, a turning point for him saying, we are no fun. I wouldn't want to be our children. And he grew up in a home that was pretty strict. I did as well, not in an abusive, strict way. And that's what we're talking about. If there is any type of abuse, then that is something beyond what we're going into. It's just is being strict and very maybe regimented or scheduled with your day, or not allowing for any flexibility or any fun, and just everything is you have to toe the line. So let's maybe think of, I know that yours is not this extreme, but let's think about The Sound of Music and the children in the beginning and with their father and how strict he was, and how when Maria came in and loosened up, it seemed like to him, he was very offended by it. But I think they really did achieve balance. At least that's the portrayal. The children had good character and they were kind and they loved their parents. Now we know Lisa went a little bit, off the script there a little bit. But that's okay. But I just wanted to share with you that if you're feeling like we are too strict and we are not fun, I was right there in that same exact boat. And it took my husband kind of waking me up to it and us then making some changes in our family so that our kids didn't look back someday and say they were so mean. Strict is one thing, but mean, not, I don't know. I don't want to say mean, definitely not mean in an abusive way, which we've already established that, but just that we weren't any fun and not enjoyable, and we didn't have any joy, and they didn't necessarily want to be around us, because I think that we can get into the being so strict that our kids don't want to be with us, and that is not the point of what we don't want to get to that point, right? We want to have that line that we don't allow our children to cross, and we have reasons why, and as they get older, we talk to them continually in an age-appropriate manner why there is that line. What I'm talking about is kind of when we cross that line and we're strict about everything, and we know in our heart that we need to loosen up a little bit. So today we're going to talk about two main areas because, yes, I say homeschooled children, but you and I know that it's a blurred line. It's not like when you go to school and your child has a teacher and then they come home to you and you are the mother. Yes, you might be helping them with homework and with school projects, but there is a distinct line. Not in homeschool. There is not a distinct line. And if you've been homeschooling from the beginning, or if you've been doing it for a few years and your children have acclimated to the fact that mom is teacher slash mother. I mean, my kids don't even necessarily look at me as teacher, just like that's mom. And that's just what she does with us. And well, for the older ones, what she did was she homeschooled us. There was not that hard line of from this time to this time, I am teacher. And from this time to this time, I am mother. No, we are mother the whole entire time. But for the sake of clarity when it comes to today's episode, I'm going to focus on two main areas. So first, we're going to talk about homeschool, and then we're going to talk about motherhood, knowing that those lines are blurred. But I think when we're trying to break this down, it's good to have a distinction. So yes, there is all of life is education, but let's focus right now on the formal academics when we are discussing homeschool. What are some of the signs that you are too strict and you need to loosen up a little bit with homeschool? Is that your relationship with your child or children is stressed, it's strained, and this is going to look different. It might look for younger children as just defiance and not wanting to listen to you and not being cooperative. For older children, the defiance might look a little bit more clear. It might not be a temper tantrum thrown on the floor. It might actually be words that are spoken to you, and it will possibly also look like disrespect for what you are saying because the relationship isn't there. When you have a relationship, it is much easier to submit to the authority of another as well as respect their words and their wishes and their direction. So some of the signs is that the relationship you have with your child is stressed and or strained. How do you get out of being super strict when it comes to homeschool? Now, again, this super strict could be maybe in your schedule. You might have a very strict schedule that is just too much for maybe one or all of your children or the entire family. It could be that you are so strict in we have to accomplish all of the curriculum and we have to accomplish it perfectly and seamlessly, and we have to get through every single book in the entire year. The strictness might also be displayed when it comes to you becoming upset. Maybe possibly sometimes even a little irrational when it comes to them, maybe also becoming irrational when it comes to possibly math. That is a very common subject that kids tend to cry about. And this isn't just in homeschool. I see it also in kids that go to public school or private school and they come home and for some reason math just causes tears. If math has never caused tears for you, that is wonderful. Maybe math is something that you all really enjoy. Or possibly you have found the secret to being able to accomplish the math without tears. And if that is the case, you have found the great curriculum for your family. You have found the great resources that is working for you. So keep at it, okay? So how can we get out of being super strict when it comes to the homeschool? There is a balance between having a plan and then over planning. I really want to encourage you to have a doable plan. When you look at all of the things in the curriculum and the resources and all of the to-dos that you want to do for, say, next homeschool year, because most likely you're winding down this homeschool year, maybe you might need to just cut those in half and at least maybe cut it in half to start at the very least. I tend to like to really start with just 1 or 2 subjects in the very beginning of a homeschool year. But have a doable plan. I did do an episode a couple back. I don't remember the exact number of it, but I will link it in the show notes for you about how to evaluate the homeschool year you're in right now, that you can do that in a way that you can be really prepared for the next homeschool year and have a doable plan. All right, that's the point. So a doable plan. Ask yourself, is this really realistic? I've got a kindergartner and a second grader, and you're expecting way too much. So be realistic, make it doable. I think that having a plan is a good thing. I think that aligns with the Bible of having a plan in place, but also we need to match that with some flexibility. If we don't have a plan, again, the old saying, fail to plan to fail. And therefore, if you have no plan at all, and it doesn't mean that you have to have a strict plan. This could be, you might be an unschooler and free and fancy free. Well, your plan might include some places you want to go on to field trips. It might include the amount of times that you want to be, the amount of hours maybe you want to be outside. It might include doing certain cooking projects in the kitchen or just having a little bit of focus. It doesn't mean that your plan, that you don't have a plan if you are homeschooling in a different type of style than a friend is. But just having a dual plan and asking yourself, is this plan realistic? You're going to go back and listen to that episode. I'm going to link in the show notes about that. Also, balance your formal lessons with natural learning. If 100% of your homeschool is having formal lessons and formal academics, whether it is something on a computer or it is textbooks or it's other books, I'm going to encourage you to lessen that. Reduce all of that formal academics and balance it with giving them the time and the space for just natural learning. Because most likely, the natural learning, they are going to remember the most. Yes, they're going to remember how to read, that you taught them how to read. Yes, they are going to remember their math facts because you're going to know that that's a very important thing for them to know and the basics of mathematics, but everything else builds upon that. So balance all of the formal academics you have and all of the plans that you have, and you can make it doable by including time for natural learning. And it doesn't have to say from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. we have natural learning and just organic learning. No, it doesn't have to be that. It can just be when you get done, this is at least what I did, got done with the formal academics. They just had a ton of time to do what they wanted to do in their own type of learning. And it's amazing the things that they would do. And sometimes you don't think they're learning anything, and they most certainly are. It might be something very basic, but the next thing, maybe a couple days later, builds upon that basic thing, and then the next basic thing. But allow time for kids to be kids. The next thing I want to mention is to focus on their character while you are doing lessons, while you're doing formal academics, while you are accomplishing your homeschool goals. And we need to balance that with sometimes the character that they are developing and the trait that they are learning as something like tenacity and trying and doing hard things. And we need to balance that also with trying hard things over just getting it done. And so we don't want to just get it done. We want to see what kind of lessons can we learn. Maybe you have to reduce your expectations about the amount of math problems that they can do because it's hard for them. And they're struggling, and you're sitting there and you're working through with them, and they did 3 math problems. That is amazing. Maybe a couple days before they could only do 1, and now you've gotten to 3. Don't just focus on getting it done, because some of these math curriculums have a whole lot of practice problems. You could break down sometimes in some of these lessons, especially for a child that needs it really broken down and taken slowly because they're building that foundation. You might take an entire lesson. It might take you an entire week to get through it. That is okay to do. Slow it down to what is going to meet your child where they are, and then you can build it up a little bit because we do want to challenge them, and because sometimes we can see in them things that they don't see in themselves, and they say, oh, I can't do it. And you're like, yes, you can. You can do 1 more. I know you can do it. Another way to really focus on reducing the strictness that you have in your homeschool is to ask your child for input. Ask them what subjects they enjoy learning about. Ask them if there's certain topics of study that they want to get into. Ask them what they think about curriculum. Now, I know you might have a child that is a little bit maybe inclined to, we'll say, an Eeyore, like from Winnie the Pooh, and they might just say, oh, the curriculum is bad. I would then sit back and just kind of watch how they engage with the curriculum. But as they get older, you can ask them, how is this? Is this meeting your needs? Is this a good way of how you can learn? Do you think there's a different way that you would learn better, especially when it gets to middle school and high school? Observe them, ask them questions, and get their input. And when they see that you are taking their input and you're making adjustments, they will love and respect you for that, and that will actually grow your relationship too. Last thing I want to mention about when it comes to the strictness and loosening up a bit with homeschooling is focus on their education. What are they learning? How are they learning? How are they learning about themselves and the world and their relationship to the world, to other people, and their relationship to God? Focus on that over perfection. No homeschool is going to be quote unquote perfect. Nobody's life is even perfect. But let's focus on education and learning and the excitement that goes along with that over having perfection in your homeschool. Okay, let's now turn the focus to the second area I want to talk about, and that is motherhood. Yes, we have talked about the fact that the lines are very blurred with homeschool as kids just see you as all of it. You are facilitating everything. You are the cook. You are the cleaner. You are the limousine driver or minivan driver. You are the one that schedules everything, gets them to appointments or to baseball practices, as well as the person that facilitates their homeschool. So the lines are blurred, but they can see you as everything, and hopefully they do. If they don't, it's most likely because you have pulled them from school and they haven't quite gotten there. That's okay. Keep at it. Eventually they will get there to that point. So what is a sign that you are too strict and need to loosen up a bit in your motherhood? Well, it's the same as I mentioned before, is that you will notice that your relationship is strained or stressed. But also, the second part when it comes to motherhood is you will know it in your gut and or in your heart. You will know that you are being too strict. When you come down heavy-handed on a child and you see the look on their face, you know at that moment you've taken it too far and you've just been too strict and haven't been flexible and that you need to loosen up a bit. And those are moments when you recognize that, if maybe not at that exact moment you can't because pride is getting in the way. I encourage you, though, when you're feeling like, okay, I can have a conversation, to apologize to your child. And then not just apologize. The goal is to not have to apologize multiple times a day, is to get to the point where you recognize those things that are triggering you, and therefore you can stop it in its tracks beforehand. But listen to your gut. Our gut as mothers is so strong. You might want to call it maybe your intuition or whatever word you want to use, but we have just feelings about our children. We know them so well. And I believe that a lot of them are ones that God puts into us. And we know we've heard enough, we've seen enough, and we can recognize it, but then we have to actually act on it. So use your gut when you know that you have become too heavy-handed, too strict with a child and or children. The first thing I want to mention here, major on the majors, minor on the minors. So what does that look like when it comes to your motherhood? Major on the things that are going to be maybe a hindrance, a character hindrance to them. If they are obviously acting in a way that is not in accordance with a Christian worldview or with the Bible, then those are definitely things that we need to step in and sit down with them and talk to them about that, depending upon their age and meeting them where they are in an age-appropriate manner. But those would be the majors. The minors might be things like silly things, like they don't want to wear the exact outfit you put out for them. Now, maybe it's something that you have to go to. Maybe it's a wedding, and it's a very formal wedding, and they need to be dressed up a little bit more. Then that would be a time of saying, hey, look, I really need you to wear this fancy dress or this fancy pants and a button-up shirt and a tie. But tomorrow, you can wear whatever you want. You can wear that camo pants and the camo shirt that you really want to wear. That would be minor things, is what are they wearing? Or maybe they want to wear their hair in a certain hairstyle. There are things there just are hills that are not worth dying on. And those hills will vary depending upon the personality of the children. It will also depend upon their age. So say to yourself, is this a major thing or is this a minor thing? Can I just let this go a little bit because there are more important things that I need to work on, such as heart issues, instead of just silly little things? So that can come with, I'm thinking now because I'm at the later end and with teens and, sometimes some of the hairstyles. And I have seen some hilarious Instagram reels because I look back now and I'm like, I can only imagine what they would have said if there was social media when I was a teen in the 90s, and because of the styles of the clothing and the hair and everything. And sometimes it's just like, yeah, okay, we're just going to let it go. You tell me that you can see through that hair that's hanging in your face. Okay, that's a minor thing. It's all right. They will adjust. They'll change their hair or something like that. But keep the big picture in mind. If you don't love the hairstyle that your child wants, but their heart loves God, they care about their family and you, and they're kind and they want to glorify God, who cares what their hair looks like? Now, I know sometimes that can be an inhibition. Maybe a job doesn't want to hire them because of that. Well, maybe if they really want that job, they might be a little bit more clean cut. So there is an image, but sometimes you're just like, you know what? It's okay. I know the heart of my children. So focus on the majors versus the minors, but keep the big picture in mind when it comes to what you're going to be strict about. We also want to remember that your child is a person, and we need to ask ourselves, would I want to be treated like I am treating them? Ooh, that's kind of a little bit of a gut punch right there. And I still say that to myself now. Is this how I would want to be treated? If it's not, then maybe I am lashing out in some type of anger. Also, the kids will definitely agree with this one, and don't turn everything into a lecture. There are times where maybe it does need to be a conversation later on, but maybe at the time, it doesn't need to be a conversation. It might be something that happens late in the evening. You could have a kiddo, especially as they get older, come home later. You might say, we're going to talk about this in the morning. Or you know what? It's just late. Everybody's tired and a little irrational. Just let them go to bed and have a conversation in the morning when everybody is more fresh. So don't turn everything into a lecture. Last thing I want to add is to do fun things together. I have a couple of episodes about connecting with your child in each of the different age ranges that we often find our children in, and I will drop at least one, maybe a couple of those links in the show notes, but if you check out the show notes and those other ones, it'll take you to the other age ranges as well. But do some fun things together. This will help you to loosen up. This will help you to see them as a beautiful person, as a soul, and it will help you to connect with them so much more so that hopefully maybe the automatic response isn't to become this strict dictator, but to also listen to them and to form that relationship, but also major on the majors, minor on the minors. That might be overall what I can say when it comes to the homeschool and the motherhood, and to keep the big picture in mind. Know that there are some hills to die on, and there are some hills that are not worth dying on. So, friend, I hope that this episode has encouraged you. Remember what I mentioned earlier is to come back to the podcast on Thursday because I have a special announcement just for you that you're not going to want to miss. Thank you for listening, friend. I'd love to connect with you more. You can find social media links in the show notes and share this episode with a friend who could use a boost to her homeschool. See you back here real soon.